intelligence did not come from you, Nicolette. That intelligence came from me. I give, and I can take away anytime I so choose. And so I sat down for the whole summer and I learned how to study. And so when I returned to school, like, all I was getting was A's, right? And, then I picked up my grades, and because of that knowledge that he gave me, I was then able to open up my own business and tutor others and teach them how to study, right? So the point is, even your intelligence, that which you have, doesn't come from you. It doesn't come from the fact that you're studying. It doesn't come from the fact that it's in your gene and all your family is smart. It doesn't come from that. It comes from God. Yes, it comes from practice and learning, because he said, if you do this and that, then certain things will come out of it. Yes, it does. But even after I had learned how to study, one day I had like a 98. So I had like one question wrong. I had 2 points off, and I was like, what? Like, where's that other, and then I looked at the question that I didn't get right. I knew the answer. And I remember people were talking about it. I was like, no, that answer wasn't there. And so when I looked at it, I was like, but I knew that answer. I could have picked it. And what I realized is, at that moment I was taking the exam, God shut my thoughts and my mind and my intelligence so that I would not pick the answer. And I think the reason he did it was he wanted to show me that any minute that I choose to close your mind, you are nothing. The intelligence you think you have will not be there anymore, right? So he has the power to shut our minds. And then we think of Nebuchadnezzar, right? King of Babylon, when he stood out and he said, look at all those things that I've done. Look at my creation, right? And then God said, tonight, you will be no more, right? And then that very night, he became a beast, and he was foraging in the forest, right? He grew nails and hair, and like, God changed him. God is the source of all knowledge. Everything that you do, everything you're able to do, comes from God. And so, like, now that I'm able to do so many things, and people are like, Nicolette this and Nicolette that, and I write poetry. I have a book out. It's entitled Becoming. It's a book of poetry. And, I do a lot of things. I speak places. I do a lot. But not one time when I do whatever I do that I take the credit. Because, like, sometimes I read what I write, or I look at what I have done, and I'm like, there's no way that I could have done that. There had to be another source. Because, like, and not that I couldn't repeat it, and I repeat it over and over, but it was just like, it's just so beautiful, or it's so amazing to me, right? And have you not been speaking to someone, talking to someone about something, and then just as you're talking, the thought of what to say comes to mind, and you're like, gosh, I'm speaking to me as I speak to you. Like, this has just been imparted to me. I didn't know this before I was speaking to you. I'm learning it now as I speak, right? So God is the source of knowledge, and the sooner you realize that, the better it will be for you, because God can take away everything that you possessed in a day if you don't take note that he's the one providing them to you, right? But when you do realize that he will be able to bestow even more blessings upon you, and you will do even more things that you were not able to do in the past. God says, everything that Jesus said before he left, everything that I was able to do, you will be able to do also. And you will be able to do even more things than I was able to do through the Holy Spirit. So the Holy Spirit of God imbues in us the capability to do amazing things. Those who have the touch of healing, your prayers are answered, or you have the voice to sing, or whatever talent that you're able to have, you're having it through God. So knowledge, wisdom, understanding doesn't come from you. It comes from God. And Elihu was able to understand that. And he said that to those friends. Those men were much older than me, but they couldn't come close to understanding what God was doing with Job as Elihu had come, right? It continues and say, consider. Sing us. So after the lesson is over, it gives you suggestions as to what you can do for Sabbath school to make it even livelier or more interesting. So these are some of the suggestions that it gave for this week's lesson, and what we can do in Sabbath school. So it says, consider singing a song for church and sharing your perspective on the ministries of God and His wisdom. It says, consider visiting a classroom in the children's division. Share with them what you have learned from Elihu and Job, and ask them what they know about our loving God. Learn from their young perspective about trusting in God. Consider traveling to a park with some friends and spending some time marveling about the wonders in nature that God has created for us. Nature is God's palette of wisdom. Consider creating an afternoon program for young adults and their mentors to discuss God's wisdom. Read Job 36 and 37 and Proverbs 2 verses 1 through 22. Where does true wisdom come from, and what do we have to do to be considered wise? Consider making a list that comprises God's true wisdom and human perspectives on earthly wisdom. How can we change our mindset to believe that God's wisdom is something that we must urgently ask for? Read the story of Solomon in 1 Kings 4, verse 29 through 34. Consider surveying people at your church or workplace about their definition of wisdom. Ask them, what are the characteristics of a wise person? Then compare this with Elihu's example of wisdom as seen in God. Connect. Job 37, 14 through 24. Let's read that. Listen to this, Job. Stop and consider God's wonders. Do you know how God controls the clouds and make this lightning flash? Do you know how the clouds hang poised, those wonders of Him who has perfect knowledge? You who swelter in your clothing, when the land lies hushed under the south wind, can you join Him in spreading out the skies, hard as a mirror of cast bronze? Tell us what we should say to Him. We cannot draw up our case because of our darkness. Should He be told that I want to speak? Would anyone ask to be swallowed up? Now, no one look at the sun. Bright as it is in the skies after the wind has swept them clean. Out of the north He comes in golden splendor. God comes in awesome majesty. The Almighty is beyond our reach and exalted in power. His justice and great righteousness He does not oppress. Therefore, people revere Him. For does He not have regard for all the wise in heart? So all those things that, and we're done. All those things that we just read, the text we just read, talks about how great God is. And sometimes we have to really consider the marvels of God and just how powerful it is. So I always tell my students in the Sabbath school class that, like, we don't have, like, for us to consider that as great as God is, He calls us friend, He calls us His children, and He abides in our hearts, in our homes, in our churches. It's like, it's the most, we don't have the understanding, the comprehension to take it all in, how this powerful God can bring Himself down to our level and to want to be with us. And then to imagine if He has possession of all of the world, the universe, everything that's in it. If we want something, what wouldn't He give us? What wouldn't He do for us? Like, you know how when you're younger, like when I was little, I was bullied a lot, like a lot. People would tease me about my hair, about my attitude, all these kinds of things. And even though I was one of 12, I lived with my aunt, so I was like the only child. And I always wanted like a bigger brother to like stand up for me and fight my cause, like to be there and to be like, stop messing with my sister and blah, 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 and beat some people up for me. And then, but to think that God is that bigger brother who will fight your cause, who will stand up for you. And he's not just any person. Like a bigger brother is a human being, but he's a God. And he has possessions of everything. And yet he will come to your defense. He will give you what you want, when you want it, however you want it, if he so chooses. That's like a most wonderful thing. And when I sit down and I consider how he thinks of me and how he, cries when I cry and is happy when I'm happy, I'm like so awed. And I think we all should really consider how God brings himself to our level, so that when we are in our times of trouble, we can be a little bit more cautious about what we say and what we do, right? Because Job did not give up on God. He did not curse God because he understood who God was and how he, as a creature, as a human being, did not deserve anything that God had to offer. And yet he knew God was in his life and God still loved him, right? So even if I'm suffering, God does not deserve, I don't deserve for him to come to my rescue because he's a God, but he does it anyway, right? And so knowing that will help you realize that, everything you receive in life, you deserve, right? I used to say that God is supposed to take care of us, right? He's supposed to, because he created us. What he's not supposed to do is die for us, right? But then I realized, perhaps, as our creator, he is supposed to care for us. But then once he died for us also, which he was not supposed to do, that should have been it. That should have been like the ultimate sacrifice, and then we're done. Anything that happens after that is really up to you. But God is so good that even after he died for us, we sin again, he still comes back and he remedies our problems. He saves us from our troubles. He comforts us. See, those are the things that he's not supposed to do, right? Because once he died, it should cover it all. And then whatever happens, it's just a consequence of our sin. But he does not always allow us to suffer from the consequence of our sin, right? He still provides for us. The superfluous, however you say it, those things that are additional, right? The things that you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. Okay, you get a job and you're expecting to get a job and get paid like $10 an hour, right? And they pay you $20 an hour. And you're like, dang, I'm worth that much. Like that extra $10, that was God, right? He did not have to do that, right? Anything that he does that's additional, he didn't have to do. So Job realizes Job needed one wife, perhaps a child or two, and a few things in his possession. But God gave him his wife. He gave him 10 children. He gave him thousands of sheep and herds and cows and everything. And then he gave him respect and glory and da-da-da. All those things that were superfluous, he did not have to have. So if God decided to take it away, hey, that's on him because he gave it to him in the first place, right? What we deserve as sinners is death. Anything else that we get is grace, right? And so anything means everything. So the fact that you're alive right now is grace. So let's not condemn God and forsake him for the things that happens in our lives. We will suffer. It will hurt. But let us know that he is there, because he's there from the beginning to the end, right? He's there the moment you came out of your mother's belly. He's there before then, and before then, and before. He was there from the beginning of times, and he will always be there. He's the one that gives you everything you have. Wisdom, knowledge, everything, including life. Cheerio.